Hi everyone, I'm Magic Dave and this is Sapiens. I recorded that the Let's Play devlog, and I have since fixed most of the issues that I came across there, so they now can actually hunt with spears again. And I thought it was probably time to tackle one of the sort of biggest things that I have left to do, and that's paths. So I need, and I don't mean pathfinding, I mean actual sort of roads and paths that they can walk on. So they can clear terrain like this to create paths, and that's kind of, that's an easy way of sort of clearing out an area, or at least it will be once I add the ability to select a large area. But it's not really what I intend to be the mechanism for actually creating paths. And I think that paths are really important. Lots of people have sort of said that they'd like it if when they walked they created paths automatically, and I'm very consciously avoiding that. I don't want that precious kind of game mechanic to be just left up to kind of chance. I want the player to have real control over that and have agency over where they go, which routes they use to get to places, and the obvious way of doing that is to actually allow you to place paths in a way that's nice and kind of easy and gives you full control. So the way that I think that will work, and I've been thinking about this a lot, there's so many ways that I could approach this, and I've been thinking about it for years. But the way that I'm going to do it is that you will go into this build menu, and there'll be a couple of extra options here, and one of them will be building paths. So you'll sort of have building objects, buildings, and paths, and then you'll be able to select the type of path you want to build, which will be much the same as sort of setting a fill type like this, and then you'll place it on the ground. So that's sort of how the UI will work, and you'll be placing nodes. So you'll place down a smallish sort of hexagon, which will be a path node, and then you'll connect them into longer paths. And if you wanted to, like if you had a node here and you were in the middle of placing a path, then you could come over here somewhere, and it would sort of automatically create a number of nodes along the way and little connectors in between. So technically how to do that, I've got this whole, this is a custom engine, and there's C++ in the back end doing all the kind of rendering, and then everything else is done with Lua. And where I can, I try to just use the engine and not sort of hack in extra bits and pieces to the renderer. I'd much rather just use what I have available and make it work if I can, or add nice things that are general purpose to the engine. So for paths, I would like to use something similar to how this campfire is offsetting all of these rocks and branches individually as you place it. So the idea is that it will sort of automatically figure out where the node should be, so that it doesn't dig into the side of the terrain and doesn't sort of float too high. And then same with the connectors. So I'll make the connectors out of individual little sort of blobs of dirt and automatically kind of place them in. So hopefully I can do it almost all in Lua and not have to do anything too drastic on the C++ side. And yeah, we'll see how I get on with all of that. Hello again. So yesterday I made a start on the paths. Now this actually wasn't what I was really intending exactly, but I'm actually quite surprised with how good this looks. So basically all it is I've added this new paths thing up here, and ignore the look of this for now, but you can select different path types, and then you can just place down what I was thinking would be just a single sort of path node. But I found that if I just place them down all next to each other in a line, they actually work pretty well as is. It's not perfect. There is more that I could do to make it look a bit more natural. So I might make these maybe angle a little bit to follow the terrain, and I don't know, just maybe make a few different shapes that it can sort of organically work with. I'm quite surprised, especially with how the steps kind of look very natural, and it just fits the game so well. So just like everything else, if you this is rich soil, so if they dig rich soil and place it, then that's how it will look. But yeah, if you have poor soil, then it will change the colour and everything. What I do have to work on next, and I'm quite like, this is probably the major part of the whole job, is that when you place something like this, I want it to sort of automatically place intermediary connections between the nodes, so that if I just sort of place it here, then it'll automatically show you where it's, it'll place a bit of path along there, and if you drag it out further, then it'll place multiple nodes for you, so that you can just quickly build up paths. And there's just a few kind of loose ends and stuff, and I also want to get to stone paths as well, pretty soon. So I want it to have a kind of cobblestone look to it. Also, they're not actually using the paths yet. I need to actually put in the nodes for the pathfinding so that they can use them. I'm going to carry on with that, and we'll see how I get on. Cool, so I've made some more progress on the paths, and I'm actually quite happy with how they're looking now. I think they're really starting to come together, and it's really kind of what I imagined. Now I know that some people might have sort of imagined really quite straight-edged paths, and also, as I mentioned earlier, I know that some people, in fact a lot of people all through development, have suggested that the paths should automatically be created as the Sapiens walk around. But no, this is the right thing to do for this game. For some games it might make sense to automatically do that, but yeah, as I said, I think that the Sapien movement and their kind of interactions with each other and their needs and all that stuff, that's very, it's simulated, and the player doesn't have a lot of control over that directly. So where the player does have control is over the placement of buildings and of the overall kind of direction and layout of the town. And so that's why I think that paths really do need to be part of that sort of full control that the player has. Anyway, the placement of nodes, they'll just snap to the nearest node, and it automatically kind of figures out that the height changes and things, and puts these little connectors in the right place. They sort of pop in as needed as you sort of get further away from the closest node. If you get too far away, then it won't snap, and I'll add a key modifier to make it so you can make them not snap as well. But yeah, those connectors actually tell you also where they'll be able to pathfind between them. So if you put them like that, then they'll have to step off onto the grass and then onto this platform over here, which will actually be slower than if they can get a direct route between two nodes. So it sort of serves as an informative thing too. And then you can just sort of place them as you go, and oops, I missed that one. So the plan is that once you've placed a single node, so I'm doing something else and I come over and I go into here and choose a path. Once you've placed that first one next to some place where you want it to connect to, after that it would actually drag out and automatically place a whole lot of nodes if you wanted to make quite a long path without having to put each individual node in place. Again, I guess another thing that's not totally realistic but is more kind of gamey is the fact that you need to take the material over to actually fill in the dirt. And in real life you'd probably dig into the hillside or whatever, but I think that it's good that you actually have to sort of build a little bit of a quarry and start digging down. I mean, it means that you're going to sort of chance upon various things too. So it's, if you want to make paths, then you need to actually do a little bit of digging, and you need to make these hand axes to actually dig with in the first place. So it, requires a little bit of, starting on the tech tree as well. From here, currently there's no physics for these centered little blobs, so they'll just walk through with that as though they're not there. So I need to actually get them to add physics for these. So I guess I could explain a little bit about how the engine works as far as, so that this is a single game object, this whole area here. and this is the main sort of model, and then these are added in procedurally. So that's very similar to like a storage area or something where my storage area is. So the storage area is the game object, and then these are just little sub-models that are added to the game object. So previously I hadn't had to actually add the physics for any of these apples or anything, so the storage area just sort of had a big sphere that's sort of this collision box, so if something lands on it, it'll just fall off and not actually cause too much trouble. And I didn't want to add a sphere for each individual object to the physics engine because that's completely unnecessary. But for this, I think I do actually need to make these blobs have their own physics, and that's just going to require a little bit of an engine change. So I need to do that, and I also need to make it so that the nodes know that they're connected, and so that when they do their pathfinding, they can actually use these paths, because I did make it... Oh, she's going to walk onto her head. I don't know. I did make it so that they can walk between the nodes. Oh, good, she just stepped beside her. Yeah, they can walk between these nodes directly if they're quite close to each other. But yeah, I need to just fix that up so to make these paths actually usable. And I also want to tidy it up so that this grass doesn't grow through them. So I need to add a little bit of a sort of bounds check thing where it just basically says don't put any grass in a certain radius of these various blobs. So those are the things I'm going to work on next, and we'll see how I get on. Okay, so I think I've done enough on paths for now. I wouldn't say that they're done. I think that the dirt paths in particular, I feel like the look maybe isn't quite there yet. I actually really like this look, but I know that some people are probably looking at this going, ugh, that's not what you wanted. But yeah, I think I'll probably add a few different options. So it may be that this dirt. Oh, I still need to do that too. Yeah, maybe the dirt paths look like this, the basic ones, but then you can actually, have a few different ones that have a bit more detail or whatever, or, just work a bit differently. I've got stone paths now, so actually let me just set this to sunrise. We're going into winter, so even though it's 6 o'clock in the morning, the sun hasn't actually risen yet. Yeah, there's enough light. So yeah, the stone paths I think look really good. I'm quite happy with them, and as you can see, it does stop the grass from growing where the path is now. That actually took a good day there, just trying to get the engine to not put these little bits of grass there in a way that's nice and fast. So as far as sort of placing paths and things go, I've done a bit of work there now. So if I place in a dirt path, so initially it'll try to connect to all of the nearby nodes and sort of create paths that they can walk to between everything, and then once you've placed one, you can then actually drag out longer straight paths, and it won't connect in the middle sections, but it'll connect at both ends, and I think that's actually working pretty well. So if you want nice sort of curved paths, then you can sort of micro, put them in one at a time. But if you want a big long straight path, then you can do that too, and it just queues up all the individual orders. So you could go in and cancel them individually as well. Okay, so let's actually get some of them maybe using some of these paths. Oh, there you go. She's going to use a path. I don't know where she's off to, but you can see that they are offset up onto the kind of steps, and where's she going to go? This way, and they are taking the paths if that's the most the fastest route for them. So that's all working reasonably well. They will just cut corners if the paths sort of go out too much out of the way, as people do. So there's nothing too wrong with that. So as far as what I work on next, the work that I've done for paths is kind of similar to what would be required for fences. And that is, I'd probably have another thing in here for fences where you sort of put down a post and drag out long kind of automatically filled in fence lines. And fences are going to be used to fence off areas for animals and to keep animals out of areas where you're perhaps storing food and where you're growing things and stuff, and also potentially to prevent other sapiens from other tribes from coming in and stealing your food and things like that too, just make it a bit harder for them to get through. So yeah, doing all of these paths has really sort of set me up for doing the fences as well. But I'm kind of a bit tired of working on this kind of stuff, and I think I'll probably focus more on something along the lines of the UI, perhaps to do with the skill management and stuff, because that's long overdue for an overhaul. But anyway, I'm really happy with this result. I hope you guys are too. And yeah, I think it's going to add a lot of life to your village. I think that's part of what inspired me to sort of create this line of trees and actually build a bit more of a village too. I think once you start laying down paths, it just gives you a little bit of it's almost like a backbone for your town that you can then sort of place everything else around. So yeah, it's feeling good. So yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see what I end up working on next week, and we'll see you again in the next devlog.